Can you guys hear me? Wonderful. Hi, 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 hi. I'm so happy to be here and honored to be helping Destiny celebrate this amazing, incredible book. Um, and I just am excited to hear, so I'm gonna make this sort of quick. I'm gonna do my banter because I think, I'm gonna take that thing out of my bio, not the part about me being a considerable consequence, but the part about my nonfiction book because it's just added stress to me because I haven't finished it, but it's coming. Uh, I want to read, first of all, I have to say that like when I joined Tin House, yay Tin House, there was no other person of color on the poetry roster. And I remember like saying, and this is not to shit on Tin House, I love Tin House, but I remember saying like, I can't be the only in the picture, that can't be me. And just to think that now your book, like, which I feel so it's my sister, and so many of the lines in the description could be interchangeable. Like that is such an honor to me, to be part of such a team, and I'm so happy to welcome you to our press. So yeah, I mean, first things first is that this book begins with my pussy, which is just the best thing. I too like to front load pussies, just to, get the reader excited. So I'm going to read the two pussies that are in the beginning of There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce. And, we're going to put them on the shelf next to each other. All they want is my money, my pussy, my blood. I'm free with the following conditions. Give it up. Gimme, gimme. Okay, so I'm Black in America, right? And I walk into a bar. I drink a lot of wine and kiss a Black man on his beard. I do whatever I want because I could die any minute. I don't mean YOLO. I mean, they are hunting me. I know my pussy is real good because they said so. I say to my friend, I am broke as a joke. I'm starving like Marvin Gaye. I'm so hungry I could get it on. There's far too many of me dying. The present is not so different. Everybody looks like everybody I worked with. Everybody looks like everybody I kissed. Men, champion men, and animals. Everybody thinks I'm gonna die. At the museum, I tell the school group about Black art. I tell them the word contemporary. I have a nose ring I forget about. I have a brother and he is also Black. I'm a little modern to a fault. I say, this painting is contemporary, like you and me. But they ask me about slavery. They say Martin Luther King. At school, they learned that Black people happened. The present is not so different. I'm looking into their Black faces. They do not understand that they exist. I'm Black in America and I walk into a bar and drink a lot of wine, kiss a white man on his beard. There's no indictment. I could die any minute of depression. I just want to have sex most of the time. I just want my student loans to disappear. I just want to understand my savings account. What is happening to my $5 1 cent? I am free with the following conditions. What is happening to my brother? What if I do something wrong? My blood is so hot and wet right now. I know they want it. I do everything right just in case. I don't want to give away my money, but here I am. It's so stupid. I have to say, here I am. They like to be on top. I'm being set up. I am a tree, and some fruits are good and some are bad. Hottentot Venus. I wish my pussy could live in a different shape and get some goddamn respect. Should I thank you? Business is booming, and I am not loved the way I want to be. I am an elastic winter, sympathy and shock, addictive decoration. In the sunlight, my captors drink African hibiscus. They tell me I look regal bearing fruit. I am technically nothing human. I will never be a woman. Somewhere in my memory, I was held by a man who said I deserved it. Now I understand. No one worries about me because I am getting paid. I'm here to show you who you are, to cradle your large skulls and remind you you are perfect. Mother America, unleash your sons. Everything beautiful you own. Thanks, y'all. Hooray!
Amazing. Love it. Love to hear it. Love you, Morgan. Love you, Destiny. I'm really excited about this because, as Morgan said, when she came on, she was the first person of color, like on the Poetry Press on Tin House, and like the first thing that she did was give Tony Perez my manuscript for Nature Poem, because he was like, "Is there anybody else who has a book ready?" And she was just like, "Here you go." And so, you know, a couple years later, I had Nature Poem and Junk and Feed on Tin House. And similarly, I was like, "Tony, are you looking for stuff?" And he was like, "Well, you know, we kind of are." And I was like, "Well, here's Destiny Birdsong's manuscript," you know, and that's really how we create the environments, the presses, the places that we want to be, is we put each other on. And I've always endeavored as much as I possibly can, is to put people on the way I got put on, whether it was like from Morgan or Alex Chi or whoever it was, Pamela Sneed, like make sure that I'm doing Pamela Sneed's book launch on Friday for Funeral Diva, and that's my mentor, but that's a person who came in and told me like, this is what I'm hearing in your voice, and this is what you should do with it. And so then, like, you know, then Destiny, I remember, called me last year. I was on tour, because I was always on tour. It was April, and we talked about performance, and we talked about reading, and it was like, and the ability to pass on the types of stuff, the wisdom, the opportunities that I mean, I didn't create these opportunities for myself. You know, we create them with each other, and that's why I'm so glad that the three of us are on this particular Zoom book launch, etc. I don't really write poetry anymore, so I thought, you know, I don't know if I want to read a poem, so I'm going to read an essay that's in the Believer. The other thing I wanted to let you know is, like, you can't see it now because it's behind my wet ass pothos up there, but it's like me and Morgan. From when we had the ability to occasionally go on tour with each other. It was 40 Watt Club or whatever that was called in Athens, Georgia, where like REM got their start. So we were like literally rock stars on a fucking stage in like a huge venue. And the first thing that Morgan said was, "Where are the blacks?"
I was like, are there any blacks? I was like, where is the black girl? And I heard one black girl and was like, "Hey sis, I'm so glad to see you." So much fun.
Yeah, so that's like, you know, the energy that I love and I want to maintain in the world. And that's why we create the types of presses that we do. That's why we maintain the relationships that we have. It's not opportunistic by any means, but it is just like, we have to look out for each other, because who's going to look out for us, you know? So this is an early pandemic essay, which I'm feeling weirdly nostalgic for. It's called "It's Working Out." Yeah, this is like in the first month, maybe. Was there anything else I want to say about it? No. They were just like, the other thing was, I'm on this group chat with Morgan and a few other people, like Fatih Oscar. And I remember like that first 2 weeks, I was just like, "Look, I love y'all, but I'm not reading any of your pandemic essays. I'm sorry." And then I proceeded to every single month publish a new pandemic essay. So it's working out. "I've started a new project," I tell Max over house party, and bring a humongous jar of protein powder into the frame. Someone somewhere says we're gonna have a meat shortage or something. Sometimes on YouTube, I do the Tracy Andersons. Sometimes the Body Fit by Amy. Sometimes the Has Fit or the Mad Fit, or the one with the lady in the 2-pound weights for 4 minutes that spaghettis my arms every time. In Zoom therapy, I asked Dr. John why the panic hits hardest when I'm still, when I'm in bed, when I try to read, when I'm sitting down for dinner. Dinner is anytime because time is LOL, but time was always LOL. Dr. John says, "It's a pandemic." He says, "When we're endangered, the lizard brain wants to run, but right now the higher brain knows there's nowhere to go." On FaceTime, Jenny says she's been using Pedialyte bottles as weights. In my house party dolls house party group, Tasba said she's been using an app called Workout for Women. She likes it because it's not a real person telling her what to do. Marcos says he should get in on that. He says his double chin is getting a double chin. Marcos does not have a double chin. The label on the protein powder says, the label on the protein powder jug says, mix a scoop in with my favorite drink, but I don't think they mean black cherry White Claws. Dr. John says my two brains aren't galloping together. They're out of step. Today I tried the Bowflex 6-minute standing ab workout. I don't think it works my abs, but it's good cardio, I tell Nikki and Kat on our FaceTime art accountability call. None of us are making art right now. I asked my food for thought group chat if the girls are mixing protein powder with Diet Coke. I tell Dr. John I haven't kept a workout routine like this since I was 15. He asked what happened when I was 15. I was a gay res kid in a racist, homophobic high school 40 miles from home. Every school day brought new horrors, new ways people said they were gonna hurt me, and then did. In 6 months, I went from 230 pounds to 140 pounds. I'm 6'2". Kat says she's going to CrossFit through Plush Fitness. I feel an ache in my shoulder. I panic. I am legit convinced I have the virus. It doesn't once cross my mind that I'm sore from working out. I tried the CBD muscle rub I got from Morgan for your sex injury, she told me, which is true. And I maintain the only reason why she got me a present was so she could use her label maker to say for your sex injuries. You see, last year, every time I had sex, something bad would happen to my body. A laceration, a broken toe. Maybe quarantine is for the best, Morgan texts. Survive, vital, vivid. Chantal has been strength training too. She says cardio is, she breaks up for a second, a lie. No matter how hard I stir, I can't get the protein powder to dissolve smoothly into the water, so globs of it stick to the glass and my teeth. Joe has a special word for going on a run. He calls it a run nut. Everyone thinks it's funny except Fran. Fran texts, I'm finally getting a butt. Working out is like a video game, except the video game is my body. Heather Robinson is my new queen, Sarah texts. Max said he's been running in the middle of the street because there are no cars. I make a standing desk with books and board games and shelves from Bed Bath & Beyond. Dr. John posits that in the absence of control, I'm exerting control over the one thing I do have control over. It takes me 3 listens of Control by Janet Jackson to walk to Morgan's house. It's different now from high school. I've learned how to nourish my body instead of deprive it. I'm sitting with Fotzi and Essay and Morgan in Morgan's yard. This is our pod. I no longer want to disappear. It's a hot day, but we're in the shade. There's a breeze. The dog is asleep. I close my eyes and I'm right here. Thank you.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you, Tommy. And thank you, Morgan. I don't want to talk too much because I'm going to get emotional and, and like start crying. But I will say that it is such an honor it's such an honor to have you as my grand poets, my God poets, my poetry midwives. I was reading your work when I was writing this book. I feel influenced by you in every way, and I'm just so grateful for that. Like, I am gonna stop right there. But thank you both for reading with me tonight. Thank you, Books Are Magic, and all of the people who have made this reading possible. I'm gonna start with the poem that brought me and Tommy together. He chose it for a contest way back in 2018, I think, and it's also one of my faves in the collection, and it's called I Too Sing America. But mostly when it's convenient, when I'm abroad, I fucking love the Constitution, the gall of the forefathers, still tittering in their received pronunciation, sauced up since whiskey was more sanitary than water. And when the woman runs out of a shop on Cowley, where I'm fingering scarves on the sidewalk, I aim my accent at her and pull the trigger. No one ever says nigger, but we lock eyes and I know what she needs. I learned to count pound and pence after I kept getting incorrect change. Who steals the most? Who steals what is most valuable? I palm 2 bottles of nail lacquer, wander upstairs for the cookies and shit. I'm always hungry. The portions are always too small. I need more dressing. I hear music coming from a rucksack and I dance in the crosswalk. At the opposite end, a brown man tells me my backpack has hiked up my skirt. I wink and say, soon you won't give a fuck about my body. That's assimilation. He smiles, says carefully, have a nice day. Elsewhere, I'm paying extra for the excursion. I want to swim with the pigs. I need to touch something else that can be offered for a small fee or slaughtered. I'm high on hash browns and all black service. I could be dead in Seattle, in Baltimore, Nebraska. What you want from me? What you got that won't get me killed? I ask this of every land I've planted my feet on and loved. Like the forefathers, it tables the difficult questions. Ocean water slicks my thighs. I submerge, watch schools of zebrafish graze my sister's palms, sand softened like the leather handbag she bought in Atlanta. Her bracelet tapped the emblem like a prisoner making music to the knock of waves in the hull of the women being dragged upstairs. The ancestors never had it so good. Maybe the children will. Another man on the beach grates his stubble with a bleached towel, waves a coconut and says he can make it strong.
You're muted.
Sorry, did I mute myself? I'm so sorry. Where was I? I am carnivorous and cannibal. I tip my room key and a smile. When I leave, I put all my cards in their holsters. I go like Darren, like Geronimo, no convictions, and I declare nothing. And this next one is called Prime Time. And I wrote it because sometimes I hate seeing Black women on commercials because people will use us in every way possible to sell things. And this poem is dedicated to 2 very specific commercials. Prime Time. In one commercial, the token Black mother sitting with a table of friends at Chuck E. Cheese doesn't care if the mushrooms in the Alfredo are fresh, and she doesn't need Chef Tony's recipe. She just wants to know if he's married for a friend. In another, the lone Black girl at the party has forgotten the relationship between nut allergies and peanut butter. She just knows her brownies are hidden. With her stringy weave and badly mimed surprise, maybe she thought her homegirl's skin too porcelain. So she fed her something that would stipple it with welts. Revenge is always, but never really, a Black woman yelling, flailing and helpless in a room of shuffling feet. At a conference, I sip vodka straight and slip into a green jumpsuit that looks almost like January Jones's at the Emmys. Danica says, jewel tones are good for blondes. In the lobby, a white man from my cohort holds me aloft by my elbows, exclaiming, well, you look great, as if he'd opened a menu and found a gluten-free version of desire, me, wrong-colored and splayed like blood-speckled currency. My breasts, 2 overripe apples in a food desert. My pussy, convenient as an EpiPen if you keep one around. Bummer, for my friend, says the mother, when the waitress confirms Chef Tony is in fact married. The choking girl says nothing, neither do I. But I steady my gaze to meet the man's benevolent shock, each almost word a pollen-flecked stinger hiving my throat. Trust me, motherfucker, I always know how it looks. This next one is found art. It's a contrapuntal, so I will read it vertically on the page and then horizontal. Found art. This publication, fully funded by me. It's a lot of work, a labor of love. I always try to showcase Black women's voices. The canon is so white. I know you published this here first, but you didn't acknowledge it. I hope I've helped your career. The only way we get likes is when people like you share us. I can't afford promotion myself, so you're doing such wonderful things. Please be mindful. I'm now editing an anthology and I could really use you since I still own the work. This work, all mine. My pain takes its toll in co-pays and an unrelenting exhaustion. How the ventriloquists steal us when they can to stay relevant. This new trend is all about the other. I regret it now, that good feeling, since I've been vetted. It's okay. That's how they know we're safe. I can't always feel worthy, but I want to be an example of our capacity for humility, of this body's contingent joy. Look, proof of purchase. This publication, these words, all mine, fully funded by me. My pain takes its toll. It's a lot of work, a labor in co-pays and an unrelenting exhaustion of love. I always try to showcase how the ventriloquists steal us Black women's voices when they can to stay relevant. This canon is so white. This new trend is all about the other. I know you published this here first, but I regret it now. You didn't acknowledge it, that good feeling. I hope I've helped your career since I've been vetted. It's okay. The only way we get likes, that's how they know we're safe, is when people like you share us. I can't always afford promotion myself, so feel worthy. You're doing such wonderful things, but I want to be an example. Please be mindful of our capacity for humility. I am now editing an anthology of this body's contingent joy, and I could really use you since, look, proof of purchase, I still own the work. Thank you. I'm gonna read Failed Avoidance of the Body in a Poem. Your therapist wants to know where in your body you most feel your anxiety. You tell her it's in the bones behind your face. They have their own music like Ptolemy's universe and chirp like shuriken dancing in the road. Your therapist says you hurt because there are things you've never been taught to do. How to hold yourself in sleep, how to drive, how to live with men. Back when you were 5 or maybe 4, your father knelt before you for the last time, close enough that you could smell him, a zephyr of Cool's Filter Kings and leaving. He pushed the tricycle toward you, purple and white streamers limp as hair on the handlebars. By the time you mounted the cranium-shaped seat, he was gone. Your new goal is to learn to breathe through bones, to make flutes of them. Although in reality, you are much more supple, a crooked fold of flesh that comes so quickly when called. You are the warm-bellied animal on the shoulder, coated in sunscreen and your father's curiosity, white-haired possum with his green eyes. You're now the oldest you may ever be. You have never before been this afraid. There are no bodies bound to rush into the room when yours becomes a bullet ringing the tiles. You know all about love's austere and lonely offices, checking your stools for blood, checking your breasts for lumps, checking your neck for swelling nodes, checking the locks, the coffee pot, and all the cracked eyes blinking wrath on the kitchen stove. Your own weep against a pillowcase you haven't washed. Stiff with the miasma of your hair, you stare at pictures of the girlfriend grinning in sunlight. You feel bad for not being taken with yourself more, but your body is all asymptotes and fractals. Your own skin splinters in the dark from its dense heat. The pieces come back together under a halo of prescriptions steeping your head in yellow light. Sometimes, while combing your hair, a sliver of cartilage lodges in your finger pad. You swallow the glittering blood and spit out the shard. Compared to your father, this is not unkind. Somewhere between your skull and the skin that swaddles it, all the songs you didn't know you needed to learn from him crescendo and fade to the rhythm of your breathing. And I'll end with Ode to My Penis, which is one of my favorites. Pill crusher, needle flusher, coconut oiler of legs, and the untouched space beneath breasts, butcher, baker, bathwater maker. And when 10,000 fall at my side and the phone goes dry, you are my hitching post of God's great grace. Bottle shaker, chalice faker, everything that ever poisoned us passed through, so too have the cures. You raised me from the dead, sinister digits. If there's a right way to stroke raw honey from the lioness's mouth, you stumble, but find it every time. Palm grazing her grizzle. How the swarm quiets for a moment. The pupilled areolas dilate their vein-webbed fronds. Oh girl, who else rides me safely through Jerusalem, unsaddled on her simple back, or massages my slippery feet with her whirled hair? I'll never let your tunic drag the ground of want again. We'll have each other and live like Lazarus, unraveling his spool in the sister's stunned silence, the death oils slipping from his skin. Savior, you track mirrored light into my wilderness. A little spit, a little mud. At the first touch, I saw men as monstrous as marching trees. Then, after a second touch, just trees. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank
Destiny.
you.
That was amazing.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry for the random mute. I was feeling it. And I hit something. But word. I don't know. So should we chat a little bit?
Yeah. How's tour going so far? I know this is like a weird time to tour.
Mm-hmm. It's been good. I mean, like, it is the middle of the week for me right now, and so I feel a little bit of a slump, but like being here in this moment is really energizing. And so, you know, like, I'm gonna be okay because I'm happy and I'm happy to see you both. But yeah, I'll definitely get some rest over the weekend, but it's been great. Like I, you know, even before the pandemic, I was like, who's gonna want me? Like, who's gonna want me to read poems? It's been.
It always feels like that though, you know?
Does it?
No matter, yes. I mean, to me, I'm like, there will be a whole crowd and I'm just like, you guys, there's other stuff.
That's how I feel. I'm always like super grateful. I'm like, you could have been doing it literally anything else. And it feels like people could have been doing even more things because they're at home. Like, I can always find something to do at home, you know, like I'm just like, you're in your house, you could be like watering your plants or like watching a sitcom or whatever. But you're here and it all, yeah, I'm super grateful that I've had the opportunity to read with so many wonderful people and at so many great venues. So yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I know I would be way past the level of exhausted I am right now, but I think it's been emotionally overwhelming, which is it's a different kind of tired, but I'm all right. I'm good. I'm again, just glad to be here, glad to be reading. So.
Also, I just want to remind everybody in the chat, for the last like 10 or so minutes of this, we're going to be moderating a Q&A with the audience. So please put your questions in the Q&A because the chat can get a little unwieldy and we might lose it in there. So if you have one, put it in the Q&A.
Thank you for that. I mean, I'll speak for myself that I will answer anything. So I actually wanted to ask about not necessarily only in that poem, the found art poem, but the whole book in terms of like, what are the collage elements that you've used? And how did you decide which to use? How did you decide like the cast of this book?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I don't know. That stuff isn't always deliberate for me. Like, so it just kind of happens as I'm writing. Some of these poems were written during National Poetry Month in 2017. And there's also like just a bunch of stuff happening in 2017, like there were like women who had gone missing in DC. There were indigenous women who were going missing that people weren't talking about. Sheila Abdul Salam was found in the Hudson, and so a lot of the poems really reflect this sense of bewilderment, and it incorporates some of the, some of those conversations I was having with my friends at the time, like about like what happens to us if we die, like how are you going to hold my memory? How are you going to like advocate for justice for me? So, those things certainly found their way into the poems, other people's poems, lines from other people's poems. There's a poem in there called Emeritus, where I sort of go down the list of like all these different images and poems by men with this, professor who is, sort of like, doing, well, maybe not shit that all professors do, but doing some very professor shit, with like
it's what they do and get tenure for. That's
the tenure work. And so I think it's just, someone asked me recently about pop culture, and I think it's like, Alexander Pope was writing about pop culture, and like nobody asks why Alexander Pope was writing about pop culture. I think that it is a general curiosity of the world around me, which is often sort of like either like brutally dismissive or just brutal towards people like me. And I'm often just wondering, like, how does that happen? And what are people thinking? And also, what are the people I love thinking? How are we responding to this? Like, I want that to be written into the record, because, things happen, like somebody finds your body in the Hudson, and there are 5 different conflicting stories about how you got there.
Totally.
And so some of the work is just about keeping a record of who I am and who my loved ones are, and what can happen to us, and what maybe should be remembered if something does.
And what it really looks like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always thinking, I can't trust anyone else to tell that story the right way, you know what I mean? And we see that over and over, as you're talking about. But the pop culture thing is so funny. I mean,
we get it all the time.
We get it all the time.
Yeah.
And I've been getting those questions since my first book, and they haven't relented. And yeah, it's interesting to hear how other writers think of it, because I don't know if it's writers or critics or whomever that is so, intrigued by it or like confused by it. But, I do tend to think that for a lot of us, especially those of us who are trying to describe and define and archive like the right nowness of our everyday, it's like there's no way it's not going to enter, you know what I mean? Like I try to cut myself off from pop culture and like current events, and I cannot, so
it would be doing a disservice to yourself and to your work by not adding another like, if you have every texture available to you, why would you just not use one? You just think you want to make it to be. And I remember noticing that in your work from the first time I read the submissions from the Cosmonauts Avenue contest, where I read I Too Sing America, and it was like this not only willingness but glee in sort of taking in the whole of the world, in like this sort of blue whale approach, which is like the blue whale just eats the whole ocean and then spits out everything it doesn't need. And that was so it was so vivid. And I was like, the kids always ask, it's not just the kids though, because I think they're guided by having read work that is of a certain type of dogma or something that is like, this has to be sacred, or this has to be indelible, or something. There has to be some truth or something, and then what you're doing is profane, and the references that you have don't matter.
So there was a lot of that. Was always the undertone to me. That was like, I disturbed something that like I dare not touch, you know what I mean? Like it I don't know. I get that it's interesting, and that, traditionally we think of poetry as like, I just fell asleep. That's what happened. But, like I get that. And like, okay, there's not like a trillion poems about the real world. We understand. However, like, it shouldn't be such an ongoing conversation, I don't think. And what you said is true. And I always use the examples of T.S. Eliot, and all those guys. Like, what the fuck are they talking about? We don't know. We have to go back to history and like investigate that
Mhm.
and contextualize it, which, you know, if you could do that for him, you could do that for me.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
and it feels, so yeah, it doesn't feel like that so much as it feels almost like it's coming from a place of like being offended. You know what I mean? Like almost like angry about it, which I think is so interesting.
Well, because I think people then expect, if it's like from us or from our perspective or people like us, that everything will be legible within the boundary of the poem. And they're never going to have to look up anything else or do anything else or do any extra kind of work, even though I do that work for other people's writing all the time. And I enjoy it because that means that's like being a critical reader. That's being a deep reader. That's wanting to learn more about the world via the work that you're consuming, right? But it's like, I literally had to write into a poem, I have faith in your ability to Google.
Yeah, it's like PS people, like, but you know what? Now that you're saying that, I really do think that there is such a, you know, comparison of, well, I guess the other part of it, not only do you not want to Google, but like, if you just made a couple Black friends, you'd be able to, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to do that either. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be me. You just have to be familiar with the general world that I live in. And that's not that hard, you know? But I think, and maybe that's the resistance of, you know, how dare you not, you know, actually have definitions down here for me, you know? Because there's no one I can ask. You know, like that's never entered my worldview.
And because it hasn't, it's not worthy.
It's not, it's not poetic or whatever. Yeah. I love also the way that you use their words and just like thread them. And that's part of that blue whale thing. And I think it's so special when you're able to, you know, consume all of us and all of them and then kind of mix it all around and create this like very American bastardization and invention, you know, and reinvention and continual reinvention. And someone's asking about the, Yash, hi Yash, asking about the links between our works. And one thing I was thinking when I was reading this book is just line breaks and that sort of thing, and that enjambment where you're able to kind of have double meanings. I think that's something that is also, you know, tied into that recycling of language in a cool way.
Code switching, really.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I wonder if that's also a thing, you know?
Say it again.
I think that's also a thing, you know what I mean? Those of us who are more proficient in it and have had to be. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that it does sort of, sometimes it bleeds into, for me, sometimes it bleeds into my subconscious in a way that I don't always fully understand until I'm writing a poem. And it's like, oh shit, like you've internalized this really problematic stuff from this professor from 10 years ago. What do you want to do with that? So yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that, I mean, that's one of the things that I really love about poetry. I think that there's a researcher in me that is always sort of like, where are your receipts? And so sometimes the language is its own receipt, right? That's sort of switching back and forth between like what other people are saying and what I'm thinking. But I love the ways that it can be manipulated in poetry, right? In ways that, you know, quoted material and speaker's voice are not always super distinct and like cited exactly on the page, although my notes section is kind of crazy.
Yes, it is. I'm curious if like, because I was thinking about this recently with another poet in their work, if there's anything that this book, compiling this book, writing this book, putting this book together and putting it out into the world, is there anything that it taught you? Or the poems taught you, at going over them, putting them together, fashioning them?
Gosh, what did they teach me? I feel like they're still teaching me things. Like I will write something in a poem. As Morgan was pointing out, like the ways that enjambment can kind of build on meaning. I do love poems that do that, but sometimes I don't always know all the meanings.
Yeah.
And then I
find that a lot of the time. Like,
yeah,
I learned a lot from reviews.
right. Like somebody will point. Yeah. Right, exactly. Somebody will point something out, and I'm like, "Dang, word! I can't see
I definitely did that. Yes,
Right.
I did. They're like, when you were talking about God and the thing, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Right. Like, of course, yes. That was very intentional.
Right.
So yeah, I think they still teach me things. I think that gosh, what are some things I had to, I think it may be best to sort of think about the things I had to unlearn. So the book itself, I talked so much shit about how short a poetry book should be. I was an idiot. I was like, 48 pages and you should read it in one sitting. And then I opened my books like last week and saw this. I was like, girl, you lied. But yeah, it taught me that the book will, you know, on a macro level, when in terms of the collection, like the book will tell you what it needs if you listen to it. Like it'll tell you where the gaps are. And because I used to be terrified about that. Like when people would talk about like laying the poems out on the floor, it's like, I don't want to do that because I think I was afraid of like seeing these huge gaping holes. But that's actually, you know, one of the things that happened is like, I wrote poems after the book got picked up that ultimately went into the book. And it was just a great lesson on like, you know, there are no hard, fast rules for poetry books. Like, do I want the second one to be a little shorter? I do, but
you don't know.
Exactly. It might happen, it might not. And for the individual poems themselves, I also kind of learned, I think that it kind of happens similarly on a poem level. Like, I often talk about Autoimmune, which is a hustle. And that poem started off as just a regular rant about like always being injected with needles or like having to give blood or all that stuff. And I was like, oh, wait, there's a form that might actually work for this like really well. And so I think that the poems are the poems and the collections for me are the things that will teach you. I think it's important to listen to other people's experiences. I think it's important to think back on things you've been taught, but like use what's useful and throw out the rest, like the blue whale, you know, like don't feel like there are any like rules that can't be broken or things that have to be so, particularly for your first collection. I feel like
go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like, yeah, like this is the freest you may ever be because, you know, I mean, like, I don't know that people like waiting on my collection, you know, like, and it's actually nice to do work when you think when it just doesn't feel like anybody's looking for it, because you just get to do what you want. Yeah.
And I think it's even more than that. I think it's because, you know, we anticipate first books, you know, when we've been reading your work, but I think what it is like the expectation is set up. For the next time. So it's like you're not only are they waiting, but they're waiting for something very specific. You don't know what that thing is, you know, and neither do they really, but there is some kind of thinking about what the content is and what it means, that what the expectations are that way. But I mean, whatever.
Leads me to a question. I'm curious about, well, I wanted to ask you both, like, what was that? What was the second book process like? Like, how did that feel already having successful first books in the world? And like how did that change your process for the second book? Did it make you more anxious? Did you feel like you had to like sort of do things to like protect your protect the craft, you know, protect your sanity sometimes? Like, what was that like?
The thing is, like, I finished Nature Poem in like August of 2014. And then I finished IRL August of 2014. And then I was already working on Nature Poem. So I had finished Nature Poem before IRL ever came out. So like that wasn't the one. And then I had already started Junk, but Feed was the one that I wrote with a full knowledge of an expectation of what people want me to do or what I'm supposed to do. And that's why I just completely fucked up the form. And I also like, it started off as a commission for the Highline Park in New York. And so I just used that, and I imagined, and it was a February too that I started it. And Februaries in New York are just like punishing and cold and isolating. And so I just kind of went into February like this and pretending like no one was ever going to read it. No one was ever going to see it. So that's just it. Denial. My capacity for denial is the only thing that's been able to get me through this whole process.
Oh gosh, I love that. I didn't realize that all of the references to the highlight, and also the reference to, like, I think there's a line where you're like, this is the first night where you don't have to go out in a spacesuit.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm like, yes, that is what February feels like.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. How about you, Morgan?
Wait, what was the question? Oh, after my first book. You know, I had already written some of the poems, I think. Both my first book and my second book started out like way too long. And definitely There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce and Magical Negro, I was kind of working on at the same time, or rather I thought that some of what became Magical Negro would be, and which is why I love that laying out process and you know, listening to the poems, talking to each other, and like that's the only way I know how to make a book. I don't usually start with like a vision. And you know, I think the most exciting thing about the first book is that you don't know you're writing a book, or at least I did not. Like the poems, I've been thinking a lot about it because Tin House is re-releasing my first book, which is like just me facing my past self. Like,
the cover
you
is
know,
so
like,
good. The cover is so good.
It wasn't like that long ago, but it was enough that, like, you know, you're a different person at 22. Just PS, you know. So I'm thinking a lot about not only that part of the youthfulness, but like the youthfulness of the work. You know, it didn't help that I was like a hectic 22-year-old, but either way, your first book is the most experimental because you're trying to figure out what you want to do and what feels good and what feels most to you or most exciting. I know that I was trying forms more than ever, but I also was in school for part of that. So I guess the process of the second was just knowing that there would be a book and being more conscious about those kind of like repetitions and echoes that I kind of assumed would happen before. But you know, once you haven't, if you haven't actually gone through the process of making the whole book, you know, from the title to the text, the copy text, you're not really sure how that is gonna go. And so the writing of the poems is totally different, you know, because you're just writing a poem.
Somebody asked this about IRL, but it's like, that's the book where I wrote that I didn't know I was a poet.
Yeah, exactly. Same. It was like, sent it out. I was like, honestly, my thing was like, if no one picks this up, I'll just figure out some other shit. Like, I don't know. You know, like, let's just see. Which, you know, I think is important to keep remembering as with every book, I guess. Are we being cut off? I'm sorry. Hi.
Oh no, hi. I was just gonna say I think we can all listen to you guys speak all night, but I think we have time for maybe one more audience question, and then I think we're just out of time.
Okay, so this one says, can you speak to the tension between writing your poetry and promoting reading marketing in it? Any tips for managing it well-ish?
My answer to that is do like your thing. Do your thing. Like, do you. I was seeing someone else ask about this recently too. And I get a lot of questions about like, do I have to have a platform? Like, do I have to be on Twitter and Instagram and all this stuff? I mean, you could, but you're not going to die if you don't want to have that. And some people, like, if that is going to cause you so much stress, then don't do it, you know, but I do think that everyone should think about what their ways are, you know, what are the places that they would be comfortable reading in? You can think outside the box. Like, you can decide for yourself what that promotion looks like. Like, if you want to have a bake sale, then that is your thing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. And it should just be like whatever is most comfortable for you. If you want to write a million pandemic essays versus do an interview versus, you know, and I think it's only awkward when people try to do like a very specific thing that they think like everyone follows this, you know, formula. It's just not as fun. So I would say just relax and think about also what you want to do.
And also, like, this is, I think, Destiny, you and I were talking about this. Like, we got on a call like a few months, 6 months ago. I don't know, it was a while ago. But talking about this very thing, and I was just like, nobody's going to care about your book as much as you do. And so, like, don't think that other people are going to do the heavy lifting. Don't think that anybody is going to invest anything in your words as much as you do. And like, act like you're the only one who cares. Because that way, I mean, in the promotion of my stuff, it's just like, I'm going to pretend like I'm the only one who cares and no one's ever going to read this. So I'm just going to like, present it in such a way that like, I just felt like I did so much work as a promoter of the work. Like, just to make it like more enticing, And then also like my first book launch was a karaoke party and I got Morgan Parker to sing a song.
That is, don't get your hopes up, people. That was a true gift.
I know. Where's the tape? I want to see the footage.
I do have I think that Lauren Whitehead took, and it's like, it's pretty intense, but everyone is just like, what's happening? But that's a good example where it's like, I just want to do karaoke and have people sometimes read poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. That advice that Tommy gave me was so helpful in thinking about like sort of being a collaborative partner in promotion with the press, like, and sort of when people emailed me about opportunities, like passing them along, and also just reaching out to people I knew, like, hey, would you like an advanced copy of the book? Yes, I do think nobody's gonna take care of your kids like you do, and like, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen on Twitter, like a lot of stuff happens in the inbox, so I think that's really important to say, particularly if like me, like sometimes social media just makes me nervous and I get on there and people are ruining themselves in multiple ways, and I'm just like, let me back away from the keyboard before I touch something and something terrible happens. But and also, I did, like I had my, official launch last week, but on the day the book came out, I had like a private Zoom party with my family and my friends, and it was so wonderful. Like, it was the best way to bring the book in the world. And it wasn't a public thing, but for me, it was, like, it was a debut moment, like, that I needed to have with the people who are close to me and who are the most important to me, aside, like, separate from this stuff. And like, that was a really beautiful thing, and I'm glad I did it. Like, it wasn't a thing I planned on doing, but like, once I did, I was like, oh, this is perfect, and I want to do this for every book.
I think it's important to have like a separate thing where you mark the accomplishment and it's not like work, And I mean, I guess that's the other thing. Like, Tommy and I, we're like hustlers a little bit. Like, we'll work a party. Tommy will be like, oh, I have a book in my backpack that I just printed out. Here, you can have it. Like, but
if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Exactly.
That's what
but I also think, and so I think sometimes people see that and are like, I'm not trying to like work a party like that. But that is, people, again, like you said, like, people can
there
do
are other ways.
But since it's easier for me than going online all the time to just like go to a lot of parties for like, the year before my book comes out and be talking it up and dreaming about collaborations and all of that stuff, that is easier for me.
Just submitting your work, once you feel like portions of the book are ready, like sending them out. Like, I knew Tommy and I knew who he was, but it's like, we did not meet until I submitted a poem to Cosmonauts Avenue, and he picked it up, and I saw him at Tin House later that year, and I was like, thank you. And he's like, here's my email address. Like, holler at me. Like, I mean, I think that stuff is important too. Like, just being prepared for opportunities when they arise.
I believe what I said was, no, thank you, because when you write good work, and this is, I mean, Morgan, you probably know this from, you judge contests before, when somebody writes good stuff, you're just like, this is it. Because you wade through so much stuff that's not, you made my job very easy.
Especially when it's like someone that you're like, oh, hell yeah, now I have someone to like keep watching, where you're like excited for their book. Tommy texts me and is like, Poets with Attitude, let's host this person, like, that's exciting. And yeah, like those connections happen in whatever kind of way.
Mhm.